This is actually pretty terrible policy. It really is. It's pretty bad, ineffective policy. There are 1.2 million guns in New Zealand. There's well over 200,000 licensed gun owners in New Zealand. New Zealand has one of the lowest murder rates anywhere in the world. According to stuff.com in New Zealand, the murder rate in New Zealand hit a 40-year low in June 2018. The number of murders in New Zealand overall in 2017 was 35. That is a rate of 7 for every million people. Every million people. And apparently the majority of those murders did not take place with a gun, despite the fact that there are 1.2 million guns in circulation estimated in New Zealand, which suggests that the problem here is not guns. The problem here is that an evil white supremacist violated gun laws and went and shot up a mosque. Here's the problem with using outlier statistics like mass shootings as a rationale for gun policy. They are, in fact, outlier statistics. They are statistically rare events. It is very difficult to create good policy on the back of statistically rare events that don't have an endemic basis to them. And when you talk about events that you can draw, that you can extrapolate from, you have to extrapolate to something that makes sense in correlative fashion. So, for example, if you wanted to say that white supremacist ideology is inherently bad, and therefore we should crack down in non-governmental ways. I don't think the government has a role in restricting free speech, but the government should monitor white supremacist chat boards, for example. I would agree, because number one, the ideology is itself evil, and second of all, there's a good correlation, or at least some correlation, between violence and evil acts and white supremacy. That is obviously not the case when it comes to gun ownership in New Zealand, where again, hundreds of thousands of people own guns. 35 murders took place in 2017, and one horrible evil event now means that the New Zealand government is going to criminalize legitimately hundreds of thousands of people. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about now making criminals out of hundreds of thousands of people. And make no mistake, these gun buyback regimes don't actually work. Australia tried a gun buyback. 1/3 of the guns were actually turned back into the government of Australia. Now, folks say, well, the number of murders went down in Australia after that. Right, if you actually look at the chart of murders in Australia, they were declining before the gun buyback. They were declining after the gun buyback. If you look at the chart of murders in the United States, as the number of guns in circulation in the United States continued to rapidly increase from the early 90s to now, the murder rate went down at a rate faster than Australia's murder rate went down. And when folks say, well, there haven't been a mass shooting since 1996 in Australia, that's when they implemented this mass gun confiscation. Well, there weren't many before that. So you're talking about going from a rate of maybe 2 every 10 years in Australia to a rate of 0 in the past 10 years. That's not statistically significant, obviously. Making bad policy on the back of tragedy is generally a mistake. And as I say, this is indeed bad policy. Now, one of the things that has happened here, and it's amazing to watch, is members of the Democratic Party have, of course, jumped on this, and they've suggested that this demonstrates that action can be taken if people want to take it. Now, I'm old enough to remember when Democrats were saying they did not want to confiscate your guns. Hillary Clinton used to say this all the time in 2016. Oh, those crazy Republicans saying we want to come confiscate your guns. We don't want to confiscate your guns, guys. We would never want to do that. Also, we kind of want to confiscate your guns. So Bernie Sanders tweeted out, because he has no brain-to-mouth filter. By the way, his home state of Vermont is one of the least restrictive gun ownership states in the nation. Also has one of the lowest murder rates. So very weird that Bernie Sanders would feel this way. He used to be a lot more pro-gun until he decided to run for president. He says, "This is what real action to stop gun violence looks like. We must follow New Zealand's lead, take on the NRA, and ban the sale and distribution of assault weapons in the United States." So he wants to ban the sale and distribution of every semi-automatic rifle in the United States. Good luck with that, Bernie. I'd like to see the Democrats run on this one. Beto has made similar suggestions in the last few days, suggesting that he wants to ban all AR-15s or all semi-automatic rifles. Here's the truth about murder rates and gun violence. They are localized. They are localized. And they are localized in high crime areas. You go to an area like Vermont, there are no murders and lots of guns. You go to an area like New Zealand, no murders, lots of guns. You go to New Orleans, lots of guns, lots of murder. So the suggestion is not that guns and murder are not linked. They can be, but it depends on the human beings who are holding the guns, obviously.